Hi there, and welcome back. This is part 4 of the question and answer post-hike video. This is probably the last one because I've been answering lots of questions, and I think I'm going to be able to cover them all today. Micah is joining us. Yes. So one of the questions that somebody asked me was, how did I get in shape for my through hike? Well, as I had said before, I've been an avid backpacker for many years, so I've backpacked before, so that wasn't new to me. But in terms of, starting in March and getting ready for a through hike, I basically spent the winter cross-country skiing in New Hampshire, and I do both classical and skate skiing. And that got me in very good shape for a through hike. I also, when I was here in Massachusetts, because many times there wasn't snow in the winter before I started my through, I would just put my backpack on. I'd fill it with all sorts of things, most my gear, and just trek around the neighborhood. I would go into the woods and try to find some hills and just go up and down the hills with my poles. And the best way to get in shape for backpacking is to backpack. So I did that, and I'm also a runner, so I do run in the woods. That's one of my favorite activities, and do core work, and as a physical therapist I do a lot of that kind of stuff. And cycling, when the weather is good, I would go out on my bike. When it wasn't so good, I would just ride my bike on an indoor trainer that I have. So there were all sorts of ways to get in shape for my through hike. And I took it pretty seriously because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to feel horrible when I started. So that was a good question. Oh, I love this one. What advice would I give to... You're going to get down now, Micah? Okay. What advice would I give to a wannabe through hiker, somebody who wants to hike the Appalachian Trail? And I'm going to start that question with the advice that was given to me when I asked a few through hikers what advice would they give me. I would ask, I would just say to them before I started my trek, I'd say, okay, if I met a through hiker, I'd say, okay, what advice would you give me as a wannabe through hiker? And what is that? Oh, that's the sun. The advice that they gave me was great. Basically was take care of your feet, which I thought was, I'm going to stand here so I sit like that so that I block the sun a little bit. Take care of your feet, which was great advice. If you feel a hot spot, stop, put your pack down, take out your first aid kit, and take care of that hot spot right away. Mm-hmm. Great advice. I was very fortunate to have 0 blisters, probably because my feet are so used to doing this kind of activity. But I didn't have any blisters. I had issues with calluses, which had to be taken care of on a regular basis. But that was very good advice. So really pay attention to your feet was good advice. Another through hiker said, take care of your teeth, which great advice because I knew quite a few hikers that had to get off trail because of a broken cavity or a broken tooth or, whatever. And they weren't taking care of their teeth as they should have. Now, those things could happen even if you do take care of your teeth, but you can minimize that if you take care of your teeth. So I have to say I flossed every night, brushed twice a day, because, you're eating bars and you're eating sticky stuff. And it's gross to not take care of your teeth. And I could see where you would run into trouble if you don't. So that was good advice. Another through hiker, this was a guy at REI when I was buying shoes prior to my through hike. He was a through hiker, and I said, I'm going to be starting in March. What advice would you give me? And he said, do not underestimate the difficulty of Georgia, which is the first state, and North Carolina, which is the second state, which was excellent advice because, well, I had told him that I have done most of my hiking in the White Mountains, and he said, oh, well, you'll be fine, but don't underestimate how underestimate how difficult those two states are, because some people think, oh, well, North Carolina and Georgia, well, that's easy. They weren't. They were tough, and you don't have your trail legs yet. You probably still have heavy winter gear in your backpack. So that was great advice, because I knew that North Carolina and Georgia were going to be tough. So, dig in and dig deep and make it happen. So that was also excellent advice that I was given. That same hiker, the guy at REI, also gave me this advice, which I really appreciated, was don't rush Maine. If you're a northbound hiker, don't rush Maine. He said by the time he got to Maine, he had Katahdin fever, which is what a lot of thru hikers have. And he just said Maine is so beautiful and it's so remote, you don't want to rush it. And so I heeded that advice. And I was already hiking with Smack Dad and Rage, and I told them, I'm not rushing Maine. And they didn't either. They liked that advice. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to stop, and I'm going to look at the loons, and I'm going to, look at the lakes. I'm not going to do 20, 25-mile days. Even though some of the terrain, when you got to northern Maine, you probably could, but I didn't want to. It was just so beautiful, and I wanted to enjoy it as much as I could. So that was really good advice. And then I was just looking to see what my advice would be. So those were the advice that was given to me. But if you asked me what my personal advice would be, it would be to start slowly. Don't start with 25-mile days or 20-mile days, because a lot of people who did that wound up getting injured very early on and then having a nagging injury throughout the trek, or had to abandon. So start slowly. Do your research ahead of time. Make sure you're prepared. I would also advise people to, if you can, have a winter gear set up and a summer gear set up. It was wonderful when I was able to swap my 20-degree sleeping bag to my 40-degree sleeping quilt. I think it dropped 1.5 pounds, which is a lot when you're carrying it on your back. So I was so happy to be able to do that, and I think I swapped it in early June. Got rid of my 20-degree. Yes, that's when Oliver came, when my husband came. So I dropped my 20-degree, I used my 40, and then not until Maine did I swap them back. And the timing was perfect for that. So and then of course you can send things home. I sent a lot of my winter heavy stuff home, my heavy hat, my heavy gloves, my wool leggings that I would sleep in. Those went home. I never used those again. When I got to Maine, I just used a very, very thin silk, legging to sleep in. But I also sleep warm. I'm a warm sleeper. Just ask my husband. I'd have all the windows open in the bedroom if it was up to me. And, don't compare yourself to others, which is something that a lot of thru hikers do. And I'm like, why are you comparing yourself to somebody else when you're hiking a trail? So don't compare yourself to others. Enjoy it. Embrace the nature. And if somebody is doing 30 miles and you're only doing 20, big deal. If somebody is doing 15 and your go-to is 12, then do it. there's most people have plenty of time to finish. If you don't get injured or anything like that. So relax and enjoy it. That was one of my big advice to many people who were comparing themselves to others. Keep that positive attitude. I know a lot of people say, "Oh my goodness, Sparrow, you have such a positive attitude." Well, you're hiking the Appalachian Trail. It's a wonderful thing that you're doing, and yeah, there's rocks and there's rain and there's cold and there's all these things that people see as negative, but they're temporary. The next day could be absolutely beautiful and calm, no wind, and every day had a new adventure. So just keep that positive attitude no matter what, because like I said, most feelings of dissatisfaction or being uncomfortable is temporary. And as somebody said, on the Appalachian Trail, you have to be willing to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. And yeah, because it's temporary, it's not going to last very long. So hang in there and embrace the beauty. I think, Maureen, you asked this question, what gives me the most joy during the trek, or what feeds my joy? And as I told you in my text, it was God's providential care through my trek. And there were so many things that happened throughout the hike that just showed that God was watching over his little sparrow. It just warmed my heart. And there were sometimes they were just little things, but it was just so wonderful to know that God had my back. And just some things like getting to the shelter before it poured. The weekend before I left, this was crazy. The weekend before I left on my trek, our church did a lovely send-off for me, and our priest, she blessed myself and Micah, which was really lovely. And I was able to introduce the congregation and talked about Cure International and why I was hiking for this fundraiser as part of my reason for doing my trek. And it was just a lovely time, and people were asking lots of questions and giving me a nice send-off. Well, we get in the car, I turn on the radio, and what's playing on the radio is Appalachian Spring. Just kind of looked at my husband and went, wow. So, things like that. Finishing when my friends Paula, Ed, and Paula Marie thought we would finish. September 11th, when they had the lean-to booked for September 10th and 9th, but we wind up using it on the 10th, which was totally divine intervention. I mean, how they booked that lean-to at least 8 or 10 weeks prior to when I finished. And I said to them, on the phone, you can't hold me to that. I don't know when I'm going to finish. But they said, well, we're going to keep the reservation just in case. They sort of had roughly calculated and, when we would finish. And they were right. God was right. He knew how to guide them. So it was pretty amazing. So many other things. Hurricane Debbie was, we had to get off trail. And it did mean that we had to do a little bit more mileage than we wanted to do that day. But we got off trail in time. Shuttle driver was there waiting for us, who we had called the day before because we knew there would be no signal when we got down to Crawford Notch. And we had a place to stay in New Hampshire. And it was wonderful. We all hunkered down, watched the Olympics. We couldn't go on trail. The ATC had said, everybody should get off trail for Hurricane Debbie because of the flash flood warnings and so on and so forth. So that just that just worked out incredibly well. One of the things I have to say before I went on this trek that concerned me was the water crossings, because there are many of them in Maine and several in New Hampshire that can be very, very dangerous. And then, as you know, Rage had a little problem on one of them, on two of them, but one of them was very serious that we were able to get to cover very quickly, thank God, because she was definitely hypothermic. But the water crossings were a concern for me because of mica. That's one thing. And also they're dangerous. I mean, people fall, you get wet, and your gear gets wet, and so on and so forth. But this year the water crossings were so good to me, and to many people too. So I was very, very grateful for that. Probably because it was a drier year, the water was not as high as it has been previous years. So I think one time Micah, he swam, but he swam right next to me because it was knee deep, but it wasn't raging, so that was easy. He could swim right across, and he's a really good swimmer. And there was only one time, Bemis Stream, when Rage fell in, that we were very worried. And when I crossed that with Micah, I did put his leash around me and around him and around his harness, so he wouldn't have been swept away. But that just felt like God's providential care. Once again, I'm going to allow you to cross these rivers with no problem. So I felt very happy and very humbled about that, because it could be very scary. The other thing that, was just such an incredible joy feeder, if you will, is just my body. I mean, my body held up really well. I'm so grateful for that, and certainly something I prayed about a lot. I had no injuries, zero, none. I just felt very humbled, by that. There was one time in the notch where I slipped and banged my knee, and Smack Dad was right there, and I just looked at him and I just said, I faint easily. Don't worry. Don't call anybody if I faint. I'll be fine, because it really hurt. And I felt the tunnel vision like I was going to faint. And I was doing the deep breathing, put my head down, and I didn't faint, thank God. But it resolved very quickly. I mean, yeah, the knee was a little bit sore. I hit it. There's a bursa right on the kneecap, and I hit it right on that kneecap, that prepatellar bursa, which is very heavily innervated with nerve endings. So, I mean, I knew that it was going to be okay. It just really hurt at the moment. That was the only time I had a little ouchy thing, but otherwise, my body was a good friend, and I was very, very grateful for that. And then, the other thing that fed my joy was the people along the trail. God put incredible people in my path so many times, and at the right time, for when I needed help with Micah, or just wanted companionship, or whatever, just wonderful people who I was very happy and very delighted to know and to get to know. So, and you all know who you are, and I do miss you all, and I think about you a lot. Okay, and finally, I think this is the last question. Oh my gosh. Again, I think this was you, Maureen, who asked this question. Looking back at this incredible challenge, what do I see with new eyes? Love that question. My new eyes tell me that with God, anything is possible. That's not really new to me. It just solidified my beliefs even more. My new eyes solidified the extent of human kindness. It just over and over on the trail, there were so many instances where people just went absolutely out of their way to help me, to help Micah, to help the people around me. And I did what I could to give back to the community when I could. So that was just incredible to open my eyes and see, there is so much good in this world, and so many good people in this world. We're bombarded by all the negative, in the news and whatnot. And it's tough sometimes to see the good. But man, when you're on the trail, there is so much good. People are really, they reach out for you, they care for you, and the community itself cares for each other, which was very heartwarming to me. And my new eyes tell me that, man, if you have a dream, go for it. Prepare, learn, do what you need to do to achieve that goal, and know that God has your back. And if you have a passion for it, giving up is not and never will be an option. So embrace it. So that's it. I think that's all the questions. If anybody has any more questions or something that I didn't cover and they're like, oh, I really wanted to ask her this, or this, just drop them in the comments and I'll type them in. Just want you to know that I so have appreciated all your prayers. And I know who all you prayer warriors out there who have been praying for me. So I really, really appreciate that. And my church prayed for me every week. I was on their church list, their prayer list, which I was so humbled about. And the donations have been incredible. I think we're up to 13,000 now. I'm just overwhelmed by the generosity of everybody. And I want you to know your money is going to a wonderful cause. Cure International is just a wonderful organization. And so many times when I was walking and feeling tired, I would just say, buck up. What about these kids who can't walk? And they need to have intervention. They need to have medical care in order to, fix their club feet so that they can walk again someday. So it really gave me the motivation to keep going. That's one of the things. And your generosity in helping that and making it real also warmed me to no end. So thank you to all of you. Take care. Bye-bye.